Chose the poem Time Does Not Bring Relief by Edna St. Vincent Millay, who lived from 1892 to 1950. This is Time Does Not Bring Relief, You All Have Lied. Time does not bring relief, you all have lied, who told me time would ease me of my pain. I miss him in the weeping of the rain, I want him at the shrinking of the tides. The old snows melt from every mountainside, and last year's leaves are smoke in every lane, but last year's bitter loving must remain. Heaped on my heart and my old thoughts abide, there are 100 places where I fear to go, so with his memory they brim. And entering with relief some quiet place, where never fell his foot or shone his face, I say, there is no memory of him here, and so stand stricken, so remembering him. I had heard one of her poems before, called First Fig, which I liked a lot, and these poems are very similar, both about death. The topic of this poem is death, namely the death of a loved one. This is an Italian sonnet written in iambic pentameter with a rhyming scheme of A, B, B, A, and then C, D, E, E, C, D. The sonnet begins with an octet followed by a volta, which is the turn, and finally a sestet. The volta within the poem made memorization slightly more difficult because the narrative of the poem changes from sorrow and missing a loved one to finding someplace where the author can find relief from her suffering. I found it challenging to change how my brain thought of the story in this way. The rest of the poem was not very difficult to understand after several readings because of its repetition and the formation of the octet and sestet into larger related groups. The rhyme scheme and meter also made it easier to identify where lines should stop and pick up. In the beginning of the poem, the author uses personification to give the rain some human attributes. The rain weeps to mirror the emotions of the author and amplify her suffering. I am uncertain of the metaphor in line 6, however, that goes, and last year's leaves are smoke in every lane. But perhaps it is meant to juxtapose the next line in the poem, but last year's bitter loving must remain. I think the poet is trying to explain how things disappear naturally like fallen leaves are whisked away by passing cars. Her dark emotions, however, are refusing to leave. They torment her constantly. Eventually the poet finds some relief, however, in a new place that she visits. She writes, where never fell his foot or shone his face. The face is objectified as it shines, or in this case does not shine, on the new place, like the sun. Then the author seems excited by the lack of his memory here. The line could be meant to relate joy and happiness, or to complete the theme of the poem, it could be more despair, because in the last line she writes, so stand stricken, so remembering him. She is stricken, or suddenly hit with a terrible feeling, and again her mind turns to his memory. I believe that the central meaning of this poem is to relay the author's feelings or past feelings of sorrow at the death of a man who was very close to her heart. I could not find, however, whether she had a husband, brother, son, or close friend who had died before she wrote this poem. The poem is meant to refute the claim that time will relieve the pain felt after a deep loss. No matter how much time passes, and no matter where the author goes, she is always remembering the death of this man. By the title of the work, it seems as if friends have tried to console her by claiming that time would heal her pain, and she has become bitter or resentful of this advice. In the line, the old snows melt from every mountainside, the poet is comparing the old snows to the time that has passed since his death. She is saying that the snows will sooner melt in Antarctica than she will forget how much she misses her loved one.